This webinar is part of the California Institute for Behavioral Health Solutions Juvenile Justice Webinar Series. Today's webinar is on examining the juvenile justice population in California, Part 2. It will feature functional family therapy, an evidence-based model for youth and families. Presenters will share implementation successes and challenges, engagement strategies, and outcomes data from their program. The presentation will include a video clip featuring personal experiences with FFT from youth and family members. The goal of the webinar is to support the use of evidence-based approaches for promoting positive mental health and wellness among juvenile justice-involved youth and their families. At this time, Dr. Karen Kurosaki will introduce our presenters.
Good morning, everyone. It is our pleasure to introduce to you our presenters, Becky Kramer, Joan Wiley, and Sonia Arreguin. I'm going to introduce Becky, and then she is going to, in turn, introduce her co-presenters. Becky Kramer has been a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 23 years with Comprehensive Youth Services for over 20 years. Last August, she was promoted to Executive Director, where her duties and responsibilities include personnel, programs, and budgets. She has been an FFT site supervisor since 2007 and a Phase 3 site supervisor since 2009. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Becky, to introduce your co-presenters.
Great. Well, thank you, Karen. I'd like to introduce with me Joan Wiley, who's a licensed social worker. She is one of our clinical supervisors here at the agency of Comprehensive Youth Services. She is an FFT Phase 3 site supervisor and has been so since, for how long, Joanne? I missed it. 2008. She has been with CYS for over 22 years. And a variety of positions, including our school-based student assistance program, which you might hear referred to as a SAP program. I've also got with me Sonia Arreguin, who's a licensed clinical social worker, and she has been an FFT therapist with CYS for 7 years. She's recently licensed in October, so congratulations, Sonia. Thank you. I asked them to be my co-presenters because they have some, we make a great team because there's different strengths among all of the team members. So there can be, each one of us, part of FFT is that there's consultation, group supervision, no matter where you are in the process. And in that team process, everybody's got different strengths and brings something new to the table, and each one of these two brings something new. Joanne is our queen of engagement. Any client family that we have difficulty engaging into the process, it's like, Joanne, you're up. You can do this. So she's our queen of engagement, so she's going to talk a lot about the engagement piece. Sonia is one of our bilingual Spanish-speaking counselors, works a lot with parents who are monolingual Spanish-speaking, and has to do the translation between the English and Spanish between the parents and the youth, which takes a whole different approach to the model. And so it was important to be able to bring that perspective into our presentation as well today. So that's who are my co-presenters today. So we'll move on. That's just the introduction slide. We've gone over the presenters. And so we're going to talk about functional family therapy. I'm going to give a quick overview. None of us here are really good at reading the slides, so we will not be doing so. What we're going to be doing is going to give you an overview of what each of the slides says and what it really means. So FFT has been well-documented research to prove its effectiveness over many, many, many years. We've also found the same to be true. Not only have they done the research long ago, but it continues to be researched. So our data gets put into a system we get information back and stats back on how we're doing in comparison to the rest of the California programs and whether or not we're meeting the model standards. So that's really beneficial information for us to have so we can see where we're on target, maybe where we need to improve, so we're constantly getting feedback. It is good with a wide range of issues. So for children who are acting out, behavioral problems, mental health issues, we found it very effective with all kinds of issues. We've also worked with kids with developmental disabilities, even medical issues that have led to mental health issues or acting out. It's been very effective. It targets youth ages 11 to 17. Our specific contracts say that the consumers are either involved in the juvenile justice system or at risk of involvement. So basically for our program and our funding, anybody from the age 11 to 17 really qualifies for the services. About 80% of our services are provided in the home. And so we will provide the service wherever the families want the service to be provided. And the majority want us to come to their home. We serve all of Fresno County, which means that sometimes our counselors are having to drive an hour and a half to just get to the family home. So, you know, for them to come to the office for services really poses a transportation issue. So we go out to their home. We also will provide services at the school sites. We've done it at churches, at libraries, but we'll also do it at our main office if that's what they prefer. Some families don't want us in their home and select for us to do it elsewhere. We want to involve anybody who plays a key role within the family to be involved in it. So if there's an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a grandma, grandpa, a neighbor who is who's highly involved in the family, then we encourage their involvement as well, so that we can increase the support system and increase the protective factors, and that will also help us decrease the risk factors for the youth and the entire family. Typically, the length of services ranges 12 to 15 sessions, but we've gone as low as maybe 6 sessions, and we've gone up to maybe 30, 35 sessions. It really is dependent on what matches the family and what fits them best. So, whoops, I'm trying to change the slide. Okay. Joanne will speak to the advantages of the family focus.
Hi, I'm Joanne, and I want to talk about the advantages of family focus. First of all, it views the family in a relational and strength-based, non-judgmental, non-punitive way by establishing alliance-based motivation, respect, and understanding, and it matches the family in the context of their own values and culture. It takes the problem focus off of the youth and puts it on the family. It does not try to change who the youth is, but turns unproductive and ineffective behaviors into a more positive behavior, attitudes and beliefs about themselves and their family. Our families support positive change in youth long after juvenile justice or treatment resources are gone. The family can support youth more effectively than the youth can on his own, and siblings benefit from this as well. Many younger siblings become involved in the intervention process, which provides added support to the entire family system.
Hi, this is Sonia, and I'm going to briefly go over the goals of FFT. So when we first start working with a family, especially high-risk families, we encounter a lot of negativity and blame. We'll have an adolescent who's already had punitive experiences, And then we have really frustrated parents who feel like they've lost control or feel like they're just being a bad parent because outside sources have told them they're not doing enough. So there's a lot of finger pointing and hopeless or feelings of hopelessness going on in the house, and parents just don't know what else to do. So it's important for us to start reducing the negativity and blame and building that hope for change. So then, and I do want to point out that these are all done in phases, which Joanne will go into further detail. So then the family begins to learn new skills that interrupt patterns that support negative risk behaviors, and we start to improve the communication, the parenting, the problem solving, the conflict management, and the family relationships. And then we establish goals for the family that are obtainable and fit the family's values, capabilities, and styles, so that will have a lasting impact and help maintain positive change. Once we start seeing these changes, then we help the family prepare for those road bumps that they will encounter with outside sources or even in the home, and we develop a plan that helps reduce the risk for relapse, and we include community resources that will also help maintain change. Sometimes, though, we do have to link families to resources during treatment, just depending on the needs of the family. I recently had a family that had no PG&E, so we had later appointments, but the kids had to do their homework before it got dark, and that took precedence over therapy. So we were able to link them to resources and get their PG&E turned back on and focus on treatment.
This is Joanne again, and I want to talk about the conditions FFT effectively treats. FFT has been demonstrated to reduce high-risk behavior in the identified clients, such as violent behaviors, criminal activity, as well as recidivism or reduction of higher-risk behaviors in siblings. Also, it treats diversion, which is an alternative to incarceration, high recidivism risks such as criminal behaviors and substance abuse, delinquent behaviors such as bullying, early sexual activity, high-risk behaviors such as cyberbullying and other really high-risk behaviors. Alcohol and substance abuse, whether it's the client or the parent, family conflict, mental health issues such as depression and suicidal thoughts, trauma and abuse of all types, grief and loss, such as death of a loved one, divorce, or separation. These are issues that affect the family. It's not just an individual problem. How FFT works in regards to the location and the services. Becky has already talked about this, but I want to add how important it is for the family to be a part of selecting the location of services, which increases their comfort level and motivation. And it decreases transportation issues, especially for our rural families where we have to travel really far, and sometimes they don't have transportation, and sometimes our Hispanic families work late in the evenings, and so our therapists are able to go out into the rural areas and meet them where they feel comfortable. It allows for families to be seen in home environment that allows therapists to assess families in a natural environment, and families feel more comfortable, which is also a benefit not only for the family, but as well for the therapist.
This is Sonia again. So who participates in FFT? Like Becky has stated earlier, we want people who play a key role in the family and are going to continue to play that part in the process of change. I work with a lot of families where the parents come from Mexico and they hold traditional roles. So we have a dad who's just the one running the show, then it's really important to get him there because he's going to be an integral part of the process. I've had grandparents, aunts, uncles, godparents, and even members of the clergy, because when you have family with strong religious values, they do turn to their priest or pastor for advice. So it's kind of nice to get them in there as well because they're going to help support that change. And we do try best, like Joanne had mentioned, to match family schedules to have everyone in session.
Becky has already provided this information regarding the length of the program, but I want to read the bubble of what Jose says about his FFT experience. FFT has been really helpful because I am sharing my feelings and why I get mad at my parents. Thank you, Jose.
This is Becky. We just also, part of the way that FFT works is that we provide follow-up. So after what we call graduation of the family, so when they've completed treatment, after their 12 to 15 sessions or whatever, then we will follow up with them at 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year after the family graduates from the treatment to see how they're doing. If they're doing great, then we say, you know, wonderful. We'll talk to the parent, the child, whoever was involved in the treatment process. But if they may have relapsed or they may be struggling, then we will go back and do in a booster session or two or whatever's needed to maybe get them back on track or maybe tweak the services to assist them to get back where they want to be.
All right, this is Joanne. And what I want to talk about is in the FFT model are the 3 phases. Each phase will give you opportunity to address how this problem impacts the family. First, the engagement and motivation is to interest family in becoming involved in the process. Engagement and matching the family leads to positive participation. Involves building trust, respect, and alliance. Engaging the family by normalizing their feelings, not pressuring them to talk, and listening to their concerns. Motivation is the opportunity to help the family to see that despite the problem, they can move forward and find ways to work together as a family, which gives them hope. Behavioral change is opportunity to teach the family skills that will help them communicate, problem solve, and parent more effectively. In our third phase, the generalization, it's the opportunity to link families to resources to support the change that has been made. Our next section is talking about engagement motivation goals. The first is to build alliance. There are 2 kinds of alliance. Each member's alliance with therapists relates to the person's willingness to come to treatment and work on a common cause. Alliance does not mean the person likes you, which is a common misconception. They usually like you, but more importantly, they are willing to listen to you, show up, and do the work. The second kind of alliance is family members' alliance with each other. This relates more to feeling a common goal and the decrease in negativity. The next one is increasing hope. This is pretty self-explanatory, but specifically family has hope that things will change and they will have the power to do that. It's the change from the we've tried everything, or the most popular one, it's a fix my family mentality. They have tried everything to change the child. This is client-focused, and we want to be family-focused. The next one is reducing negativity and blame. There is a change in session from explosive nagging, blaming, and negativity. This is generally a feel, you get it in the room, and we get in the room, and it is also an obtainable change, which don't you think we are going to get very negative families to be happy-go-lucky? Because that will not happen. Blaming is somewhat self-explanatory. Change focus from client to self. I get upset or I start nagging for my family. We have a hard time communicating versus he refuses to follow the rules. The next one is relational focus. Family changes their focus to seeing the problem as something between two or more family members. This is a specific question on the CPQ. So it is a good tool to measure if you are ready to move to behavior change. Changing the problem definition is one thing that increases hope. They have worked on their definition of the problem for years. When you get them a new definition, when you give them a new definition, they start to feel hopeful that they can change now. Also, understanding the culture and values of the family by being sensitive to personal and cultural issues and values.
Oops. Well, we're having a little technical difficulty, and I can't change the slide to the next one. So we'll continue on. There we go.
The next slide is talking about engagement motivation, the assessment area. Relational function, FFT uses a three-category system of interdependency, which consists of contacting or connecting, which is a person that requires a lot of contact or attention, neither necessarily negative nor positive, or healthy or unhealthy. The middle one is midpointing, is sometimes wanting contact and sometimes not. Also, autonomy, wanting their independence, can spend time away from the family and still care a lot about them. In regards to hierarchy, it is more than just looking at compliance. It also includes assessing whether one person in a relationship exerts more influence over the other person's behavior and vice versa. A one-up is a decision maker. Midpointing is a symmetrical change in behavior. One down, the parent depends on the youth to make decisions. Risk and protective factors in this assessment can increase a person's chances for behavioral issues. While protective factors can reduce the risk, an important goal of prevention is to change the balance between risk and protective factors so that the protective factors outweigh risk factors. In certain situations, a risk factor can also be a protective factor and vice versa. Values, beliefs, and culture of the family. As previously mentioned, being sensitive to personal and cultural issues and values is a plus for understanding and working with families. Learn from them, ask them about their beliefs and their culture. Obtainable change is meaningful for the family by focusing on significant and obtainable behavioral changes or goals that will have a lasting impact on the family.
And this is Becky. I just kind of want to give just an example of the relational functions in the hierarchy. These are not, we do not judge these. Like some therapies will make judgments and say you have to be this. A lot of parenting classes say the parent has to be what we would call one-up. The parent has to be in charge. They have to be the decision makers. They have to be connecting to the kids. And that doesn't fit for everybody. So, for example, you can have a one-up kid. That means a kid that is able to make their decisions and be able to be autonomous. They don't want a lot of connection. They don't want to talk to their parents a lot. And so what we'll do is, so they don't want a lot of contact. They want to be autonomous. So we may, what we do in the treatment process, have them text messaging, sending emails, that kind of thing. A one-up kid can make decisions. It is the parent's job to make sure that they're making good decisions and heading the right direction. But that doesn't mean that then the parent is like going to go, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do and when to do it and blah, 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 blah. it is going to be functioned in a different way. And so that's part of what Sonia's going to talk about in the behavior change plan. Okay, Joanne's going to go on with a few more of the engagement motivation techniques.
Okay. What we want to talk about here is the techniques for engagement motivation. And the first one is talking about matching, which is being respectful of their feelings while matching to their mood, the energy of the family, the language, as well as their hierarchy, culture, and values. And then the reframe, our change meaning technique, reframing the negative behavior to see the noble intent in it. For example, Mom, you yell because you want your daughter to listen and hear what you have to say about her behavior, because you don't want her to get into trouble. You want her to do well and become successful in life. That's a good reframe for a parent when a parent is nagging and yelling, and then the therapist can come in and reframe the negative behavior and make it positive so that the child can hear it. And sequencing is a change focus technique also, identifying behavior patterns and feelings so that the family can experience it in a different way. Help to identify where in the behavior patterns that the therapist needs to intervene. In regards to point processing, pointing out something that has been observed during the session of how the family members relate to each other. For example, I notice you joke around a lot with your parents when things start to get out of control or get a little tense. Or you can say to Mom, I notice you start to play with the baby when your son is talking about serious and intense issues. And those are ways that we can point out something that we observe in the session, and then we point it out to the family in order to change the focus back, or to bring them back to where they need to be. Interrupting and diverting negativity by ignoring it, focusing on something else, or changing the subject. Strength-based relational statements are change-focused techniques that highlight a positive, strength-based relational interaction or progress. I can see you are a passionate family and work hard to communicate the only way you know how. So sometimes that's really true, because our parents, most times they're doing the only thing that they know how to do. And for us to recognize that and point that out to them, that can bring about a change focus in the techniques that we see in them. Here we are highlighting family progress, moving forward, and appear to want a better relationship with one another. Themes provide new explanations of problematic and painful patterns that provide hope for the future. Theme hints, for example, fear, wanting to be appreciated, anger, loneliness, feeling unappreciated, safety issues, independence, worry, hurt, frustration, responsibility, and freedom. These are all hints, theme hints for when a family is going through something. These are things that we need to pay attention to. Relational theme hints on the relationship, focus on the relationship rather than the behaviors linking the family together in non-blaming ways, or linking them emotionally in a strength-based way. I would say to Mom, you work hard to make sure your family is taken care of. Or I would say to a grandma, you really try hard to keep peace in the family. And then the last one, the organizing thing, used in session to develop a sense of family hope, a way for the family to experience the past and move forward toward their future, which includes all family members in the intervention.
This is Sonia. So behavior change is when we begin to teach the family skills by changing patterns that cause conflict, and we develop more protective factors. Every family is different, so we'll develop a uniquely crafted plan that matches the hierarchy and relational functions of the family that Joanne had just spoke about. During this phase, we are just constantly motivating the family, keeping that hope alive, and we model praise in the session. We provide positive reinforcements. We call the family and do check-ins, and we continue to focus on those family strengths. We are also always assessing, well, as a clinician, I'm always assessing and asking myself, is the family making any type of change or any notable change? Are they reducing those risk factors? You know, we're asking ourselves, is the family communicating effectively? Are the parents providing consequences if that's the skill that we have taught them? Is the family engaging or interacting differently? And we do this after every session, and it's even in our CSS progress note. So we're just always thinking, we're always, you know, assessing the family and how they're doing. If, you know, the answer is no to these questions, then I have to figure out why, and it's usually a matching issue. And so I have to go back and reevaluate my plan and my skills and to see where I need to tweak that. Some of the techniques or some of the common skills that we teach are the principles of positive communication, parenting, problem solving, and conflict management. Now, the skill has to match the family, and it will look different for each family. You know, communication, for example, communication will look different for a connecting family versus an autonomous family. So if you have a connecting family, then sitting down at dinner and doing a check-in will work for them. But if you have an autonomous family, well, then communication may come in the form of a text message or even a Post-it note. Not that one is any better than the other. It's just that's what works for that family in particular. So in the session, we'll introduce the skill, and we'll coach, and we'll direct, and we'll use aids, again, matching the family, and then we have the family practice. And then when we assign homework, we make sure that the family feels comfortable with the skills and understand what's expected, and we will assign something that is accomplishable, again, matching the family. So once we see that the family has built protective skills and we reduce the risk and the family has some notable changes and they can pretty much do this on their own, then we move into generalization and we start to apply these new skills or competencies, and we apply them to other systems such as the school or work, probation, or even extended family. You know, I have a mom who just told me the other day that, and we're in behavior change, jumping ahead of me, but she was able to educate her family on her daughter's diagnosis, and she was able to, you know, get them to stop telling her what she needed to do. Like Becky had said earlier, there's a belief that the parent needs to do this and needs to do that, and it was creating anxiety. So by educating the family, then she was able to reduce her anxiety and reduce her daughter's anxiety, or put them in her place, as she had told me. So when we start to look at how we can maintain change and avoid the relapse, and we link families to resources that help support the change. You could be parenting classes, vocational, volunteer opportunities, churches, or even support groups. So when we're planning for generalization, we are assessing for risk factors, again, that may limit the family's ability to maintain change. That could be in the home or out of the home or externally or internally. Internally, the family may be experiencing financial stress, the birth of a baby, moving to a new home, a family member getting sick, or even a new job. And these are just some examples that I've seen. Externally, the family may be living in a high-risk neighborhood, or the adolescent may be on probation, or the parents may have conflict with an employer. So we're always looking at those risk factors, and we want to increase the protective factors. But these risk factors can also be protective factors. So a new job can mean less financial stress. A new move could be that you're out of the high-risk neighborhood, and your probation officer could be a source of support. So when we develop the generalization plan, we, again, assess those risk factors, increase the protective factors, and because we don't want the family to go back to the negativity and relapse. And we want to assess the family's ability to utilize resources. So if we have a family that doesn't have transportation, and it doesn't make sense to provide them with information to the food bank across town because they're not going to have a way to get there. So it's important for us to get to know the community the family lives in so they can access those resources. Okay. In generalization, we explain to families that change is like a dance. One step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, one step back. And we normalize this, and we emphasize that relapse does not mean that they are failing. It just means that they need to keep trying again and practice and strengthen their skills. We build confidence in the family, and I like to point out where they were before and where they are now, and point out the changes with their new patterns and their old patterns. In the plan itself, I always like to do what if. So we identify a problem that can occur, and then we identify strategies or skills that they can use with this problem. We identify what relapse will look like. We identify triggers. So if you have someone that has anger issues, okay, your jaw's clenching, your heart is racing, what can you do at that point? Well, I can take space, I can call a friend, I can practice my breathing exercises. And again, we link to community resources, job fairs, food banks, counselors, or mentors. And then once we graduate the family, we provide follow-up. I think Becky had mentioned earlier, every 3, 6, or 12 months. Call the family, assess how they're doing. Are they practicing their skills? I assess for any new risk or protective factors, and how the family is managing relapses if they've had them. If they report they're great, then we'll call them at the next scheduled session. If they need support, then we'll schedule an appointment for a booster session and address concerns. And if we need to modify the plan depending on the current circumstances, because there may be some new risk factors, then we do that as well. I also take culture and language into consideration. A lot of times, like Becky stated earlier, I have to translate back and forth. So in any of these plans, in the behavior change plan and in the relapse prevention plan, we do take that into consideration. So I know that we've referred people sometimes not knowing that there's no Spanish speakers at that agency, and they'll come back and they'll get frustrated. So then we always need to make sure that there is someone that's going to be able to speak their language.
All right. I'm up again. This is Becky. I'm going to talk about the program implementation and the outcomes. So for us, again, each agency does it differently, but for us, our referral process is that any person can make a referral to our program. That is why we have a waiting list of about 180 families on our waiting list right now. Might need to find some different ways of dealing with that, but we do end up with a great waiting list, and that's partly because we've been doing the program for a while, and we've had a lot of great successes, and our referral sources have seen the outcomes of the work that we do and that the FFT team does, so they do want to make the referrals to our program and are willing to wait for the services. We do follow up with all of our referral sources. So they do get either a phone call, or we have like a little form that we send out to them, letting them know the outcome of the referral. The FFT team structure is there's an FFT site supervisor and there's FFT team members, and generally there's between 2 and 8 on a team. In terms of the implementation, for CYS, we require that the site supervisor is licensed. That is not the FFT requirement. That is just ours because our staff are either marriage family therapy interns or social work associates working towards licensure. That's not part of the requirement of FFT. I know that there are unlicensed, there's paraprofessionals, I know probation officers do FFT. So it's really a matter of the specific agency, the requirements of that agency, and then also their contracts or grants to fund the program. To become an FFT, what they call therapist, you attend a FFT replacement training. To become a supervisor, you attend an externship, and that's where you actually have a client. You go there, see a client, they watch you through a one-way mirror, walk in the room sometimes, knock on the door and say, excuse me, come on out, therapist, let me give you some feedback during the session. And when I went and when I did externship, I actually was flying back and forth to Florida, had a client there, followed the model in which I would call him and the parent every week to keep the the progress going and continue their engagement, continue the balanced alliance that Joanne and Sonia were talking about. And then after that, you attend a supervisor training. Each FFT site supervisor is assigned either with a national FFT consultant or one through CIBHS. So issues related to the supervision, it's just really about learning and teaching the model for us. We really like people who are kind of like brand new out of school, who don't have a lot of, maybe individualistic thinking, that they can learn the family therapy model and that it's family focused. If they come from certain backgrounds, it may be difficult to pick up the FFT expectations and think of it through the FFT lens. We hire staff that match the culture and the languages of the community. So about 50% of our staff are Spanish speaking, because that's about 50% of our clients. We also do have Hmong speaking. We've had other languages as well that represent the community that we work in. All of our progress notes are written in what they call the CSS system. They take a long time. It's kind of a pain, but it's really helpful. And so part of what the questions are in the progress note, it says, what were the reframes? What did you point process? What was the sequence? What's the, what's the behavior pattern? It helps you think through the case and helps you plan for the next session. So you know exactly where you've been and where you're going. And then there's just always great support from CIBHS and the national FFT people. The program outcomes, we have low treatment dropout rates. It does reduce criminal activity, violent behavior. It does assist with the siblings' risk behaviors as well, improves family interactions, decreases the family negativity and hostility, and just decreases the need for like foster home and out-of-home placement. Got a few of our own personal stats, and I'm just going to give a really quick overview of them. But one of the things that FFT looks at is what is the client and family's confidence in the therapist. Do they believe that the therapist can help them change? And we do question the adolescent, the parent or the guardian, the sibling, and any relatives or other people that are attending. And if you look at the slides, these are from 2012, and then I'll show you some 2013. As we move through the phases, the confidence in that change can happen increases throughout the thing. And parents typically have the highest confidence that things will change. This is about the trust. This is significantly higher difference through the phases. How much do they trust the therapist? So a lot of people have had CPS come in, law enforcement come in. They've had negative experiences with the system or school system. And so you can see initially their trust level isn't very high, but it increases over time. And then the number of days of incarceration. So pre-treatment, you can see that we had high numbers of consumers that were incarcerated during treatment. It dropped. Post-treatment dropped again. We did have, some kids that kind of relapsed and had some days of incarceration. We put treatment on hold until they were released. But then you look at the post-treatment, that's up to 1 year after treatment ended, how many days they spent incarcerated. So we had an 80% drop in recidivism. These are the 2013 numbers. Again, just looking at how the clinically significant changes. You're looking at, you want to score 47 or below. So pre-treatment, we're at 60 and 69. Post-treatment, 48 and 47. I'm going to kind of hurry through this. These are the 2013 outcomes, which basically, are the same as our 2012, slight differences, but a little bit, just a different year with some slight changes. I'm going to hurry through this because there is a video that I think you guys would like to see. So our outcome shows that, that most of our families, our completion rate is 79%. So that means that almost 80% of our clients actually have successful completion of FFT. That's really good for any treatment model. And our failure rate is really only 14% because 7% was non-treatment failures. They moved out of the area or something like that. So really, our failure rate was really only 14% versus, some other treatment models. Got to have a little story here of they said we had a little more time than we thought. We were kind of rushing through because we thought we went until 11. Oh, so we might have to review some of the stuff or answer questions because we were thinking we had till 11. I'm going to show you a video. Our program is funded through Prop 63, the Mental Health Services Act funding. They wanted to do a story on programs that were funded through this MHSA funding, and they had asked us to be a part of it. The video shows an actual client and parent that were involved in our services, and it also shows that we work really closely with the schools. So you're going to see the FFT portion of it. You'll also see after that, you're going to see a school-based portion of it. The school-based counselor is actually one of our counselors as well. That's one of our student assistance program counselors that refers to our program. So I'm just going to play the video and let you watch it. And I'll stop it when we get to the end of our segment.
Choice to Heal is a paid program sponsored by the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission. We will still be standing, facing all our fears, facing all our fears.
Hello, I'm Mariel Hemingway. I know firsthand the importance of mental health. I've battled my own depression, including a family history of suicide. Through hard work that included exercise, eating right, and therapy, I found hope. That's why I'm here to talk with you about mental health. Voters also made a choice to heal back in 2004 when they approved California's Mental Health Initiative, Proposition 63. Today we're seeing programs investing in people, preventing mental illness, providing early intervention, and reducing stigma. As you're about to see, voters have had an impact. Californians are finding ways to heal.
They're going awesome.
Innocence runs wild down the middle of a dark and busy street.
Well, we were flagged down by a community service officer from Fresno Police Department who was actually holding a child, a young 4-year-old boy.
This guy before?
It sounds like this is the second incident in the last month that the child has gotten out.
Family members, including mom, arrive at the scene.
We learned that the child got out of the house. He was being watched by siblings. The mother was at work, apparently.
Officers keep the child occupied, awaiting the inevitable. He won't be going home.
The mother was ultimately cited for child endangerment, and the child was taken by Child Protective Services. Well, you're talking about at-risk youth is where it starts. If you're not got to parent your child.
Families in crisis, Fresno is coming to the rescue.
I'm a therapist for the Functional Family Therapy Program with Comprehensive Youth Services. I travel out to their home, to client homes, and visit with families and provide therapy in their homes. CPS potentially could be a referral source for us, yes.
Clara and her daughter Ariel were referred to the Functional Family Therapy Program by school personnel. The teen's behavior had set off alarms.
It was quite difficult in and out of homes with my mom because she was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and so we were homeless sometimes. I was a very angry person who was cutting, doing drugs, skipping school.
Cutting or self-injury is an unhealthy way to cope with emotional pain. The family was falling apart, and Mom finally hit rock bottom.
Sometimes we just stayed as friends up until I turned 13. Then I ended up going to foster care, and she went to rehab and got sober.
Proposition 63's Prevention and Early Intervention funds make the in-home treatment program possible.
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. Our families have traditionally difficulty with transportation and accessing services.
I can't get on buses, and we have to take a bus to get there. So when I get on a bus, I have panic attacks.
Mom and daughter are getting along much better these days. Ariel is sober and no longer cutting herself. Mom's working hard too.
Today I have 5 years clean.
In the 2 years that I've known them, I've seen this family go through so much change and really improve their lives.
We told people when we passed Prop 63 that we would spend 20% of the money every year on prevention and early intervention. And why did we do that? Because we recognized that unless we help people who, because of family history or because of their own lives, are going to get seriously ill unless we intervene early.
Early intervention is more crucial than ever for Ariel and Clara.
I got pregnant and a lot changed.
Was it shocking? Was it unexpected? Completely. But I felt comfortable in that she and Mom have the skills and the abilities to take care of him.
Ariel is studying, determined to graduate from high school and break the family cycle of despair.
He deserves everything that I didn't have.
Ariel was referred to services by her school. Fresno considers campuses a powerful resource.
It was a lot of family issues where I didn't want to be at school, a lot of depression.
I had a friend who actually committed suicide, and that was really hard for me.
Cambridge Continuation High School is not Prop 63 funded, but is ground zero for identifying at-risk youth.
So if I've got a student that's credit deficient not coming to school, I've got to be able to break down, why are you not coming to school? Why are you not waking up? It could be as simple as, my alarm clock is broken. Okay, let's get you an alarm clock.
About 2/3 of adolescents with mental health needs go untreated. School failure is a big warning sign.
They're homeless, and so again, we have to deal with the issues from an alarm clock to I don't have a place to lay my head at night.
An on-campus counselor with an open-door policy links kids to outside services.
You can't keep stuff bottled up inside of you.
We just have to keep doing the work. That's the only way to change the story.
Changing the story is changing lives.
Finally finished high school, and I finished early.
23-year-old Richard Dawkins credit.
Okay, that was our piece of the documentary. There we go. It shows you how we link and connect all of our services together. So we have our school-based program. They can refer to our functional family therapy program. But we also work with the school personnel. We work really closely with that principal. That was actually a continuation school here in Fresno. She uses both of our school-based program and our functional family therapy program, but we also have a variety of other services here at our agency. So if they don't fit into one program, we can move them into another program and make sure that they're getting services that are fit towards their needs. In terms of the resources, CIBH has many resources for FFT and other programs on their website, so we use those all the time. And then as I talked about earlier, progress notes are written into the CSS system. And in that system, what they've done over the years, they've added more and more resources. So if you're looking for a behavior change technique for a particular issue, you could look
in this resource in the CSS, and it will say, okay, here's maybe some communication skills. Here's maybe some skills to deal with acting out behavior or to deal with problem solving. So it will give you some ideas of what to do. In the behavior change in FFT, you're really kind of fitting whatever matches that family. So it's not like, okay, you use these particular skills and these particular skills only. It can be anything and everything, whatever's going to work for that family. And so we try it, see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, we either tweak it or eliminate it. So it's constantly assessing to see if we're on the right track and matching, again, their hierarchy and their relational functions, and then just who they are to see if that fits for them. Crystal had said, we talked about things in FFT sessions that we haven't even talked about with our family or even amongst ourselves. We got things out that our grandma or even other family members couldn't get us to express or even talk about before. The reason why I think FFT works is because it's family focused. It's not focused on the individual. It's not focusing on one person. It is not about getting the kid, fixing the kid, or getting the kid just to do the chores, or getting them to do their homework. It's about improving the relationship amongst the family members. When you have a better relationship with your family members, and whatever that looks like for you, then you're going to be happier and healthier and be able to function better within the rest of your life. And so I think that's why FFT is really beneficial. We thought we were supposed to be done at 11, so we were kind of trying to get through it quickly, so apparently we had a little misunderstanding there, but we would like to thank everybody and thank CIVHS, that acronym is hard for me to say, for allowing us the opportunity to make this presentation. And we thank you for taking part in the webinar. And I think if you have questions, then I think Karen and them are going to let us know that you have questions.
Yes, we sure are. So at this time, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter your questions into the questions box, and we will go ahead and read your question. But I do want to start off with just saying thank you to our presenters today. Thank you again, Becky, Joanne, and Sonia, for your presentations. This was wonderful. And we're going to go ahead now and look over to our questions box and begin to read over those questions. But feel free to go ahead and keep submitting your questions.
So, Becky and team, we have a question about if you can go back to the definitions you gave of the relational functions and hierarchy. The question is about your definition sounding a bit different, possibly, from that in the manual. So I just wanted to go back to that and see if you can clarify. I don't know if you folks did any kind of adaptation, or and if you did, you know, it might be useful to share why your definition might have sounded a little different than the manual.
Okay, are you talking about the relational functions or the hierarchy, or both?
Both, the relational functions and the hierarchy.
Okay.
But the fact that the connecting and the mid-pointing and the autonomy, that's the part that you,
yeah.
Is that a connecting person or a contacting person is a person that requires a lot of contact and attention, which is neither necessarily negative or positive. And I think that Becky did a really good job of giving a description of that.
Yeah, I think why it might sound a little bit different than the manual is that, you know, we didn't give the manual's verbatim description of what these things are. We kind of try to give more of a practical of what it looks like when you're actually doing a session description. So when we've tried to present some of these concepts, because when I go to trainings and you give these words, I'm like, I need them put into context. And so we were trying to help put those into context. It doesn't mean we're looking at it different than how FFT describes it. We were just probably trying to give a more day-to-day explanation of what they are.
So thanks for that clarification. And that was kind of a two-part question, because the second part is, would you be able to share a copy of those day-to-day operational definitions with our participants who are interested?
Yeah.
I can email it.
Yeah, Joanne's got a little written down.
Yeah. Great.
But
so what we'll do for the question was asked by Madeline. So Madeline, thank you for your question. What we can do for you, Madeline, is we'll get those definitions in writing from our presenters, and then we'll send it to you in an email afterwards.
Yeah.
So thanks for your question. And then we have another question from Erica. Hi, Erica. By the way, Erica wanted to convey to you presenters that was very helpful presentation. So that was nice of you, Erica. And the question has to do with handling when a child is detained during FFT treatment time.
Well, thanks for the compliment. We appreciate it. We always like to hear the positives. We like feedback to know we're on the right track. If a youth is detained during treatment, we will continue. What happens is two things. We've got to look at it from an FFT standpoint, and then we also have to look at it from a funding source standpoint. Our funding is through Medi-Cal funding, so we do Medi-Cal billing, and then we're also Prop 63 funded. FFT doesn't really care what our funding is. It says that you need to maintain the relationship. So what we will do is we will if it's a short detainment, we will keep in contact with the parent or the guardian, other family members. We have had therapists actually go out to the Juvenile Justice Center and visit the kid, maintain that relationship. If they're going to be in there long term, we'll typically just put the case on hold. So if they're going to be gone 3 months, we'll typically put the case on hold, but we'll stay in contact with the parent or guardian so that we know when they're released, and then we'll start again. And then, like right before they're being released, we'll again begin those contacts again with the youth so that we can kind of pick up where we left off. So we won't just like go, okay, we're done with you. We will wait till they're coming out. Now, if it's like they're not coming back for like a year, we'll typically say, okay, Mom, you need to call us when the youth is released, and then we'll pick up from that point in time. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you. And again, Erica, thank you for your question. Jennifer is interested in part 1, and part 1 was another webinar that we had done. And so just to answer your question, Jennifer, we're going to go ahead and send that link out to you because I do believe it's been recorded. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes, it has been recorded and it will be placed on the website.
So we'll send a link to you so you can access it from our website, and also if there was any kinds of handouts or materials like PowerPoint slides, we'll get that to you in an email as well. So thank you for asking about part 1. We have a question from Patty. What are the staff's caseload size?
Sonia is laughing because FFT basically says around 10 to 12. Because we have such a huge, massive waiting list, our staff typically see more than that just because we want to get as many families in as possible. So, like, our staff are typically scrambling. So I know that sometimes they've had up to 17 families at a time, which is, like, crazy, 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 crazy busy because in between, so okay, you may be seeing the family for an hour a week, and typically, you know, if we send somebody out to a rural area that they have to drive an hour and a half to, what we'll do is we'll typically go, okay, we got 3 or 4 families that you can see back to back out in that community. So you're not driving out there 4 days a week to see 4 different clients. So we try to organize our clients to be as time efficient as possible. But typically FFT says about 10 to 12 cases, but for us, we really appreciate our staff doing a little bit more than that. Sonia's shaking her head going, yep, yeah.
We stay busy.
We stay busy.
Yes, I'm sure everybody understands that struggle and the balance.
Right.
You know, going back to Jennifer, who was interested in our Part 1 webinar, I know that others are now asking for that information, so I just wanted to share with the rest of you that we'll send that information out to everyone who participated in the webinar today. We have a question from Peggy and a few others about whether you are the only agency in California using that model. And we know from sitting over here at CABHS and providing implementation support around FFT that that Fresno, although you are one of our longer implementing sites and one of our stars, that FFT is being implemented in other places in California. Did you want to add to that? Because I know you were kind of part of other learning, like a community that was implementing this together?
Yeah, there's, I don't know the number of sites, but I know there's many sites throughout California, and what they do is once a month we'll have administrators phone calls so we can consult with other sites. So there'll be somebody from CIBHS running the phone call. So it's really about an opportunity for us to all consult and say, you know, who's got this, who's had experienced this, what have you done with that? So it's an opportunity to share with other sites as well, and that, which is really helpful.
And this might be a good place to kind of highlight one of the things that you talked about in your presentation, that although at your site you have licensed clinicians who are FFT facilitators, that is not a requirement of the FFT model as it's been designed. So I think that's a really important point for us to share, kind of underscore that you need not be a licensed clinician. And in fact, in one of the other FFT teams in LA County, I believe, the FFT facilitators are in one team probation officers. So there is variation in who are facilitators in different sites.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are interested in getting more information about FFT, go ahead and let us know either in your questions box here today or after the webinar. Just send an email over to Kelly. And what we'll do is we'll forward that to the appropriate person in-house here who can then contact you and talk with you more about what your interest is in, maybe either finding out more about FFT or maybe trying to get trained up. And what, you know, we'll let you know what we can offer in terms of implementation support that Becky was referencing there. So feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to help you with that. We have a question also from Peggy about how you were able to build a relationship with juvenile justice.
Basically, it's just a lot of outreach. That's how we've built all of our relationships. Is, you know, I've gone out and done presentations. I've gone and even just met judges in the juvenile courts. We have a behavioral health court here in Fresno, so I've introduced our program to them, done presentations to the probation officers, and these are all done on a regular basis. I did a lot more of that outreach in the beginning And again, I think that's partly why we have such a tremendous waiting list, is because of all the outreach that we did. And then the staff, when they get a case, they are also making contact with the referral source. So, you know, when Sonia gets a case, she just doesn't get the case and just, you know, call the mom and the kid and, you know, bring them in and work with them independent of anybody else. She's working with the referral source. She's working with the school. She's working with, if the kid's on probation, she's working with the probation officer. She's working with community people that may be able to assist and support this child and this family. So it's really, we try to make it a community effort and really build those support systems. And in doing so, then the juvenile justice courts feel more comfortable in referring to us. And so it just is built and built and built from there.
So the second part to that question is, how are they trained in the goals or objectives of the model? So it sounds like through some of that outreach, are those like formal presentations where they get, where you share some of the goals and objectives of the model, and then also through your continued work with shared clients, they just kind of get a sense of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, part of this, the presentation today was actually taken from presentations that I've given to them. So part of it is I have actually gone through the model itself so that they would understand this is what we do and this is why it works, and so that they are making the referrals to family therapy and not just to individual therapy. We want them to understand that this is the impact that we can have through functional family therapy. And then again, once they get referred and then they've seen what's been going on and they see the impact that our therapists are having, they've been very pleased with the results and said, oh yeah, this program is just really on the right track, and so they will then make more referrals to the program.
So we have more interest in the definition of the relational function of midpointing. Do you think you could give another quick overview of that definition for us again?
Midpointing is sometimes when the client is in between connecting and being autonomous. Sometimes they want the contact, and then sometimes they don't want the contact. They want you or they don't. It's just kind of being in the middle.
It's the perfect example is the adolescent who wants to be babied, but also wants to be very independent and grown up. So they sometimes want the attention. Sometimes they're like, Mommy, come sit with me, and, you know, do this with me. And then other times they're like, Mom, I mean, Mom. It's also the parent that does it. Sometimes the parent can be midpointing. And they come home from work and they're tired and they just want to be left alone for a while. So they want to be more autonomous, be left alone. But then later on, at dinner time, they may say, okay, but dinner time, we all sit together at the table and eat dinner together. But after dinner, okay, we can all scatter and go our own ways. So they may have times that they want to be together, and sometimes they don't want to be together. The problem is with midpointing is that if you are on different pages, so the difficulty with the relational functions is that if they're not on the same page, if you've got somebody who's autonomous and you've got another person that is connecting, trying to come to a medium on that and fitting that. And that's where you lose the hierarchy, because the person who is one up is probably going to win that battle and have the person be a little bit more of what they're wanting it to be. But we find ways of making it work with the relational function and the hierarchy together. I hope that answered the question and gave a little more examples.
I think the examples are helpful, so hopefully, yes, that answered the question. Thank you. From Leisha, we have a question about what kind of behavior change interventions can be used when you have an adolescent that is one up and parent that is one down. For example, when it comes to making sure that to come home by curfew.
When you have an adolescent that's one up and a parent that's one down, we like to give, okay, that kid has, you know, the power, but I don't want to use the word manipulate, but I guess. We're doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll just give a recent example with a kid that wanted his cell phone back, and so then he was able to say, okay, these are the conditions that I'm going to do around the house in order to get my cell phone. So they're setting the rules, I guess, and then the parent who's one down but thinks they're one up says, okay, that'll work for me. And so then the kids set the precedence for that, and then they were able to get their cell phone back. So does that make sense? So in terms of coming home by curfew, you know, it's just the kid saying, okay, this is the time I'm going to be back, and if I'm going to be late, then I'll give you a call.
And this is where I'm going to be. This is
where I'm going to be at. So, and now if you're looking at relational functions, though, if you have a kid who's autonomous, then it may have to be through a text message.
Does that give
Let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we were just hoping that example kind of was helpful.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Christy from Napa County. Hi, Christy. She wants to know if the CSS is visible to anyone, and what is the link to reach it?
I think she found it. Never mind, I found it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you found it. Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Darren. Do most of your clinicians have a flexible schedule and work in the evenings?
Yes. 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 We sometimes hold sessions at 8 o'clock at night. Again, it's because we really want those key players in there. You know, like I mentioned before, I work with families whose parents work in the fields and they get out late at night, and if that person is going to help maintain change or is part of that relational pattern, then we will get in there and we will get there as, you know, when the family needs us.
Okay, so we have a question about when you say keep in contact, do you continue with full family therapy? And I think this is referencing a part of your presentation, and I don't know exactly when you had said keep in contact.
Yeah.
Do you remember if you... Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
The contacts are in between sessions or after they graduate or if the youth is detained. So contacts can be either by phone or in person. Usually what we'll do is the contact will start with the phone call. But if we can be assistance and we can further the goals of the treatment by meeting with them, then we will do so. So when we're making the phone call, we're assessing what needs to happen next and what we can do to further their reaching their goals. And when we do the contact, it is contacting everybody who's participating in the treatment. So if, you know, if we've got mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, even the pastor and the youth, the siblings, we will be contacting all of them again by phone and then seeing what we need to do from there.
Okay, I think that the question had to do with when a child is in custody. I think you addressed that a little bit in your presentation. Maybe if you could kind of restate that, that'd be helpful. Is the contact after, when a child is in custody. I think you explained what this in terms of whether it was short-term versus long-term, but if you could just restate that quickly, that'd be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, if the child's detained, then what we'll do is, if it's a short detention, we'll stay in contact. That's by phone with the parent. It could be, again, continuing to assess, and if it needs to be in person, just to kind of keep the flow of things going, we will do an in-person visit. We have gone out to the JJC to see the youth. They have allowed us to see the youth out there, again, to keep the flow of the treatment going. If it's going to be longer term, then typically what we'll do is just let the mom or the dad or whoever know, the parent or the guardian know, to contact us when the youth is released, and then we'll continue on treatment at that point. Because it becomes difficult to maintain that the flow of treatment if we can't have ongoing treatment. If it's just a short break, it's okay, but longer term breaks, we'll typically then fill that slot with somebody else and then pick them up again when the youth is released.
All right, thank you. So we have time for just one more. Actually, I think this is a follow-up to the midpointing question. So I'm just going to read that to you, and I think that's the last one we're going to be able to take today. For those of you who still have some additional questions, go ahead and send them over to us. I don't think we're going to be able to address them live here right now because we're at the end of our time. But we will ask our presenters if they can maybe provide a brief written response so we can get that to you by email. If you have some questions afterwards, obviously go ahead and email those to Kelly, and we'll try to direct those to somebody who can answer your question. So here's that follow-up to the midpointing question. So, okay, so midpointing is not really a bad thing then, only when you have autonomous and connecting separate that is more difficult in developing an intervention.
None of them are bad.
None of them are bad. It really, yeah, no.
It's just, they are who they are. We don't judge it. It is it working for them? Mm-hmm. Is it getting them to a healthy relationship? So what our job is to do is not to change it. If they're midpointing, we're not going to change them from being midpointing to autonomous or connecting. If they're one up, one down, symmetrical, we're not going to change that. What we're going to do is help them find skills that make the relationship healthier, that match them. And so it's not about what's happening is the way that they're doing it isn't working, and we're going to help them make it work better for them.
Yeah, to add on to the example that Becky had given was, if you have the midpointing parent that comes home and is tired and the connecting kid and it's just like, Mom, look at this, look at this. Okay, so before maybe it would look like, oh my gosh, just get away, and just yelling, and so it'll create conflict, and then again, they're still midpointing and connecting. You know what, can you give me 5 minutes just to relax, and then I can address what you have to say. So if they're still midpointing, they're still connecting, we're just making it look different.
Great. Thank you for all your questions, everyone, and thank you to the presenters for answering them very completely. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon for our post-test questions. Sharon?
Great. Thank you. Let's look at these questions one more time, and let's see how much we have learned. So we're going to bring those questions back up once again.
I have to do it on here.
Question 1 should be on your screen, and that question is, what are the 3 phases of the FFT model? Engagement and motivation, behavior change and generalization, engagement, or B, engagement, reduce negativity, and increase motivate change. Or C, family skills, modeling skills, and practice to maintain change. Go ahead and enter your answer now, and let's see how we're doing.
Where is the sharing?
Okay, 79% of you got it correct. The answer is number 1, A, engagement and motivation, behavior change, and generalization. Okay, great. Moving on to question number 2. Okay, question number 2 says, to qualify to be an FFT facilitator, a person must be a licensed clinician. Is that true or false? Please go ahead and mark your answer now. True or false? %, answered B, and that is correct. Number 2, B, is the correct answer. That is false. You do not have to be a licensed clinician. All right, moving on to our last final question. FFT has been proven to reduce high-risk behaviors in only the identified client/youth, but not in siblings. Is that true or false? Please mark your answer. Wow, 93% answered B, false, and that is correct. That answer is false. Well, thank you all again for joining us today. That concludes our time together. Again, I want to thank our presenters for their presentations. Again, thank you, audience, for attending and participating. We encourage you to take a few moments to share your feedback as you exit this session. And if you haven't yet, please inform us if you're interested in CEUs for participating in today's webinar, and that will conclude our broadcast. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.